everyone. I'd like to welcome Chef Kelcy again. We had her last year for the pasta making event, and we're happy to have her again here at the Danvers Library for steak and dinner tonight. So she's going to teach us the basics about how to cook a nice, delicious steak and also a sweet treat of tiramisu. After you, Kelcy.
Oh, thank you. Would you mind pinning my two screens for me? That way everyone can see what I'm doing with my two little cameras. So hi, my name is Chef Kelcy. I am a Lowell-based chef and food educator. I'm also the farm chef and kitchen manager at Wright-Locke Farm in Winchester. We're a nonprofit farm, and I run all the crazy things out of the kitchen there, from community events like senior tea times and farm to table dinners to cooking classes and all kinds of other just incredible things. So I'm super excited to be here with all of you tonight. Valentine's Day is just around the corner, and I know that for a lot of people, it's kind of like a chance to celebrate with someone that you love and kind of treat yourself. And so this class is all about learning how to create a really special meal at home. That's just like really fancy. Hold on one second. Did you get them pinned?
She's going to do that right now. She just saw my message.
Cool. Thank you. Nice. Yeah, so we are going to make tiramisu. I call this tiramisu for two. It's kind of really for four. But it's like a smaller version of tiramisu. And if you're making this for a crowd, because it's so easy, but seems so fancy, it's really easy to just kind of like double it or triple it, and then you're kind of all set. We're also going to be doing a seared ribeye. So just kind of like how to sear steak and cook a steak at home. I use a cast iron, and we're going to make a bearnaise sauce to go with it, which is where that like really fancy kind of like touch comes in, but I promise it's very easy. And then the other thing we're going to do is just some simple roasted asparagus. So overall, it should be absolutely delicious. And I'll wait a moment to get the stuff pinned.
Jen penned them for you, so we're all set to go.
Oh, I have like a different view. I see everyone. So weird. Let me see. All right. My IT guy's going to figure it out, and I'll get started. Okay, so we're going to start with tiramisu. This is something that, again, it sounds really fancy, but it's actually pretty easy. And all you have to do is, well, there's steps to it, but the great thing about it is that if you're making this for like a special dinner or a party, it's amazing to be made the day before. So this is like one of those make ahead desserts where you don't have to worry about it. So in here, I have some heavy cream and mascarpone, and then here I have some egg yolks. We're gonna make the custard, which is gonna be like the layers of our mascarpone, of our tiramisu. So I just got some sugar that I'm gonna add. I like using sugar in the raw when I'm doing kind of like any baking, not necessarily cakes, but if I'm doing something, especially where I'm like really looking for a rich, beautiful flavor, I like the added caramelization that kind of happens in it's not a caramelization, but it's like a caramel flavor that's added to it. All right, so I've got my sugars. And I just split the sugar. All the recipes get emailed to you guys, so I'm not going to worry about kind of telling you my measurements. But what I'm going to do is individually whip these things and fold them together, and that's my custard. I'm also going to add a little cinnamon because I like a little cinnamon. It's a little something fancy. All right. And then I'm going to turn on my mixer. And I'm just going to whip it until stiff peaks form, and it's nice and fluffy. So when you're doing this, I'm all about what? Oh, is it possible to spotlight my second camera? Only one showing? I just want to make sure everyone can see everything. Thank you. Oh, yeah. Oh, now it's only that one? Possible to do both? How do we do both? There I am. Whatever. We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. It's fine. All right. So I have, is it pinning instead of spotlighting? Is that different? We're going to get this, guys. We're going to get there. Is it the same? Are we good?
I think we're good. Yep.
What can everyone see? I don't know. All right. So I'm going to whip this up. We're just going to go. We'll see what happens. Maybe could you guys do the other one? Or no, are they both? Can you guys tell me what you're seeing? What's he saying?
This only shows
the one screen.
Yes.
Every time we try to spotlight, it makes us remove the pins.
Oh.
Right.
So it's kind of one or the other, but we can switch it out as you need it.
Okay, cool. Sounds
Okay.
good.
Actually,
All right.
see if you can try pinning both instead of spotlighting. See that.
Oh, did you hear that? You could try pinning, or we could just do it this way. Whatever works.
Whatever works. Okay. Either
Whatever
way,
works. Technology. All right. So I'm just going to whip this. And I'm kind of like, the idea is making it like nice and fluffy. And then I'm going to do the same with the eggs, and then we're going to fold it together. And that's our custard. Go. So what I'm doing is I'm just going to use my same mixer for both things. I like avoiding dishes at all costs. I cook a lot, and I think that cooking is incredible, but oftentimes it does lead to a bit of a mess. So I try to think about ways to lower that. And I'm like, oh, well, if I just use the same whisk, it's totally fine. But because I do that, I start with the cream, because I don't know, like the egg yolk whipping with the cream will mess up like this actually being able to whip. So I always start with like my cream based thing, and then I'll move on to my egg yolk. But look at that. That's like, I like to hold things upside down. All right. And then we just have the sugar and the egg yolk, and I'm just going to whisk this until it's light and fluffy. Or you're looking for like a lighter yellow, like you would do when you were making custard. And it's going to kind of get like stringy on you too. So you'll kind of know it's ready because it makes like little ribbons. So we'll see if we can't get that. Just moving my bowl around to make sure that I'm getting everywhere. You could also do this by hand if you don't have a hand mixer. It just takes a little bit longer. We're almost there. So I'll like show you guys how it's starting to look. It's getting nice and light, kind of a lighter color. It's also getting more viscous. So that's because we're whipping all that air into it. Oh, almost done. Just takes a few minutes. And again, I'm just turning my bowl because it makes it easier for me to just make sure that I'm kind of constantly getting those eggs. All right. That looks good. All right. So, and you can see like it's nice, it's thick. We have like this really pretty, it's paler in color. So that's ready. So I'm gonna make a mess. Put this in the sink. Move this out of the way so I don't trip. All right. And now it's time to put our tiramisu together. That's literally all of the like hard work that goes into it. Now it's just building. So I'm going to fold this in here, and then my custard is done. So I've got my egg yolks, and you can see like, I'll show you guys how it's kind of coming out. Oh, I should turn it the other way. There you go. Well, it's coming out nice and thick. Okay. And then I'm not going to like quickly stir it up. I'm going to gently fold it. Because if I take like the egg yolks that I just put in here and then I really, really quickly whip it together, that's going to take all that air that I put in there and just deflate it. And so I just kind of take my spatula, I'm going under it, and then I just gently go back and forth just until it's all one color and no yellow spots remain. That means that we're nice and mixed in. This is a dessert where you eat raw egg. If you're not interested in having any of the raw egg yolk, you could just make more of the mascarpone whipped cream and use that. Maybe add a little extra sugar or not, just double it. All right, and look at that. That's it. So we've got like this really beautiful tiramisu cream. And now we're gonna build. So here I have coffee. You're gonna make tiramisu, just make some extra coffee. I'm gonna add some Kahlua. Just gotta add a little alcohol in there. I think it's supposed to be like a tablespoon, but it's like a hearty tablespoon. All right. And now it's just putting it together. So this is my little tiramisu for two casserole. I love this because my partner and I like snuggling on the couch and eating our dessert together. So this is like the perfect thing where one of us can hold it and we have our spoon and just, it's so cute. You could do it in like little individual ramekins. You could do a larger thing. I'm pretty sure I'm probably gonna need another one of these, but we're gonna find out. So these are my lady fingers. They're pre-made. I buy them at the grocery store. And all that we're gonna do, we're gonna build. So I'm gonna start with dusting this with cocoa powder. So I've got my cocoa powder here and I'm just gonna give this a dust as that first layer. And then all we're gonna do is quickly dip our ladyfingers in our coffee liqueur and then put it in here. All right, so give it a dip. And these are legitimately sponges. So it's not like putting it in and holding it for an extended period of time. It's dipping it, letting it soak up that coffee liqueur flavor and out. It's probably going to be like 4 in a row is what I'm doing. Oh, we got it. You look at you guys. Thank you. That's amazing. Hi. All right. So I've got my first layer of ladyfingers and then I'm going to put some cream. All right. So I've got my cream. Use the back of my spoon to spread it. This is really just by eye. I like see some of the ladyfingers here. So I'm just going to get a little bit more cream. Put it in. And this is just like a layered dessert. You also don't have to add the alcohol if you don't want the alcohol or if you're going to be serving this to kids. Just don't add it. All right. And then we're just going to do the same exact thing again. So I'm going to dip my ladyfingers. It's like funny too, because you think that they don't absorb a lot and then you put them down and they like start puffing out and you're like, oh gosh, there's a ton in there. All right. 3 and 4. Perfect. And then I'm going to add some more custard. We're going to just spread it. Get a little bit more. I think I have enough to make like a tiny little bowl of tiramisu. So I'm going to do that. And that's going to be my Saturday snack while my partner is working. I can have some tiramisu for me. All right. And then just to finish it off, I'm going to dust it again with that cocoa powder. There we go. And then you can top it with shaved chocolate. I have these cacao nibs. My mom works for a company that's based in Asia, which is amazing. And she went to Vietnam and she brought me back like cacao nibs from Vietnam and I'm obsessed with them. And so that's what I'm going to put on top of this. You can get regular cacao nibs at the grocery store. You don't have to send someone to Vietnam for them. All right. And that is my tiramisu for 2. I'm going to just make like a really quick little one and show you guys how you could do something like this in a tiny little bowl as well. So I've got this little ramekin, or if you have, no. We're going to use a mason jar because it's glass and then we can see the layers. So just like we did previously, I'm going to give it a dusting of the cocoa powder. And then the only thing that's different about this is because it's like this little ramekin, obviously this is not going to fit in there. So I'm going to dip it and then I'm going to break it up. So I'm going to give it my dip and then I'm going to break it and just kind of place it in there. It's perfect. I'm going to get some cream. This is going to be a 3-layer. I can feel it. All right, so I've got my cream. I love putting things in mason jars. I lived in Georgia for a long time though, so like we love mason jars in the South. It's a thing. All right, we're gonna dip it again. And put it right here. I'm gonna take like another half of one because I want to make sure we get all that yumminess. Okay, that's actually good. I'm gonna do some more cream. Get this here. There we go. Again, like this was so easy to do, right? There was only one real like cooking aspect to it, and the rest was kind of like, you're done. All right, I dipped that one, so I'm gonna put it right here. The best part of this is if you don't use all of your coffee liqueur, guess what you get to drink? Okay. A little bit more. If you're feeling really, really fancy, you can make ladyfingers. It's just like a kind of like a cake batter. And you just kind of put it in a piping bag and pipe it out. So it's pretty fun if you want to find a recipe for that and really go all out. All right, so I just added my last little piece there. And I'm gonna get the rest of my custard. So for the coffee, try to use a really good coffee. Use a coffee that you're like, you drink this coffee and you're like, this coffee is so good. And whatever that is to you is great. And what I'll normally do again, like if I'm going to the coffee shop and I'm buying a coffee and I know I want to make tiramisu in the next day or two, I'll just get extra coffee and then it hangs out in the fridge. You're good to go. All right, I just put the last layer on here. I'm going to add my dusting of cocoa powder. These really are like just pretty little individual ones. I'm going to move this stuff out of the way. And my cacao nibs. Somebody's here. All right, my cacao nibs or your shaved chocolate, whatever you want. And then that's it. So we have like just this little adorable tiramisu cup or this little mini platter. Whatever you have in your house really works. It doesn't, like nobody says it has to be one type of shape as long as you can make the layers. All right. And that's it. Dessert is done. So you cover it, you're going to put it in the fridge at least 4 hours, preferably overnight. I'm going to put mine to the side because I don't have room in my refrigerator right now, and that's a-okay. I'll have to make some space. So I'm just going to stick these here. They can hang out. And now it's time to make dinner. So we are doing steak. And what time is it? 7:20. Perfect. We're doing steak, we're doing a hollandaise sauce, and then we're doing the roasted asparagus. So this is a hollandaise. I don't want to do this yet. I'm going to start by getting my asparagus prepped. Actually, no, I'm going to season my meat. It is important to season your meat early. It just like allows all the flavors to kind of meld, especially if you're using beef. Like salt permeates that. And so kind of salting it earlier is really great. I didn't salt these earlier because I wanted to do it with you guys. But that doesn't mean all meat should be salted ahead of time. Something like seafood, you never want to salt seafood until right before you use it. Chicken's kind of similar. If you let the chicken sit with salt, kind of gets tough. But beef like really loves it. So I'm just donning my gloves because I don't want to wash my hands a million times. They're my fancy gloves. My hands are a little wet, so I'm struggling. All right. So this is my ribeye. I got it from the butcher counter at the grocery store. I was actually looking, like one of the things I think about a lot is what do we have access to at our grocery stores, right? Like I'm incredibly fortunate that I work on a farm that has amazing produce and we have a grocery store. It works with about 50 different like farmers and suppliers in New England to bring all New England product to the farm. So I completely am aware of how lucky I am. But not everyone has access to something like that. And so then I think about the ways in which we shop at the grocery store and how do we do certain things? Like how do you even buy meat, right? How do you find a good cut of steak at the grocery store? And I went to 2 stores today to kind of look at it. The first was Wegmans. I love Wegmans. And their ribeyes were vacuum sealed. They did have some, I think, in the butcher counter, but they were vacuum sealed. And you notice when you're getting meat like that, that it's not as fresh. So if you're looking for something where you really want to have the freshest, nicest cut, you want to go to the actual butcher counter. And then you want to look for like pretty even marbling. So if you guys look here, you can see that there's like just marbling throughout. I have like bigger chunks of fat, but there's no like huge globs of fat. And that's preferable for me because I'm not going to just like chew on a hunk of fat. And when you're buying meat, it's expensive and I don't want to pay for something that I'm not going to eat. So I really pay attention to the cut. And I am totally that person that asks for exactly the one that I want at the butcher counter. And I think you should be too. So, feel empowered to go and do that. I am going to rub this with a really, really simple rub. And the reason I'm saying so simple is because the bearnaise sauce is so flavorful. It's so yummy. And I just don't want to take away from that. So all I have is salt, garlic powder, and pepper. That's it. And so I'm going to pretty generously season both of these steaks. And then they're just going to hang out while I get the asparagus ready. And we're going to get our pan going for cooking our steaks. I know I didn't say it earlier. I should have. But also, if you guys have questions, feel free to put them in the chat. I love answering questions, whether it's related to what I'm making or something that you've been like, it's kind of cooking related and I've been wondering for a while. Feel free to ask. If I know the answer, I'll give it. All right. So I'm going to just season. I'm holding it up. Do you guys see how I'm seasoning? I'm not like directly over it. And the reason you want to go a little bit higher is because when you're sprinkling, so like what the chefs do, right? But when you're sprinkling from up higher, you're getting a more even spread. So I'm just giving this a nice coat. And don't forget that steak can hold a lot of salt. Actually, speaking of salt, we should talk about salt. So salt is like the number one thing that's important for cooking, I think. I love it. And it plays such an integral role in whatever you're making. So do you see his like a nice little seasoned crust? And the thing that you have to think about with salt is not all salt is the same. So I strictly use for cooking the Diamond Kosher salt. I love Diamond Kosher salt. And the reason for that is there's 2. One, it melts really quickly into whatever it's doing. They're really small crystals, so it's quick to melt. And what's great about that is when you're cooking, understanding how your salt works and melts is super important. So the thing I use is, let's say you're making soup and you taste it and you're like, this needs more salt. If you add something like Diamond Kosher, like a small salt, it's going to dissolve really quickly. You're going to taste it. You're going to know if it needs more salt or not. If you add something like a Himalayan salt or a like flaky, not a flaky, but like a chunkier sea salt, trying not to touch my hair or my face with my gloves, or like just like a salt that's kind of slower to dissolve, you're going to put it in your soup and you have to make sure you wait the proper amount of time before you taste it again. Because if you put it in and you stir it and then you taste it, that salt has actually not dissolved yet. And so you have no idea if it's properly salted. You could taste it and you're like, nope, it needs more salt. I'm going to add some more salt to this. And you do it. And then 20 minutes later, you go back and taste your soup and it's over salted, right? So just kind of understanding that is really important. All right, I'm going to move this. I like trying to keep a clean kitchen. I'm going to wipe this down really quickly. Yeah, so understanding that is important. And then the other thing about your salt is understanding the salt density. So salt density is when they're creating the salt and drying the salt, you're looking for, well, not what you're looking for, the density is how dense the molecules are. And so, hold on one sec, sorry guys. I'm talking, but I'm cleaning and washing my hands again. All right. So the salt molecules, their density impacts how salty it is, okay? So we were talking diamond kosher salt. It's the least salty salt there is. So if you take diamond kosher salt and Morton kosher salt, Morton kosher salt has a 2 times density from the diamond kosher, which means that that salt is 2 times as salty. So if you're reading a recipe and it says 1 teaspoon of salt, if they're talking about diamond kosher salt and you add Morton kosher salt, you're going to oversalt your food. You've actually kind of started to notice that a lot of things like New York Times and Bon Appetit, they'll start listing that they're using diamond kosher salt. So you understand. The other thing is kind of just thinking about like knowing how your salt works, and you don't necessarily have to follow what the recipe calls for salt. If you understand your salt and your preferences, you can kind of like eye that. I always just say be careful because it's easy to add, hard to subtract. And with that, our steak is seasoned. I'm going to turn on the cast iron. So I'm using a cast iron pan and I'm going to get it really hot, like smoking hot. And then we're going to sear our steak and we're going to cook it. And I, of course, forgot my temperatures. I literally can't believe that. Nope, there they are. I wrote them down for you guys. But I'm also going to talk about ways to tell them which like your meat is the tender, or not the tenderness, the doneness you want just with your hand. Or a meat thermometer. I've got both. We'll see if my hand test matches my thermometer test. All right, but before this is ready, let's prep our other stuff. So I'm going to do roasted asparagus. I also got some really great potatoes at the farm today. And so I just chopped them up and put them in my air fryer with some olive oil and salt. And I'm just going to put those in the air fryer to go with dinner. Super simple, super easy. Again, thinking about how we're kind of taking these staples like potatoes, asparagus, steak, super great, right? Not a ton of work. We're going to figure out how to do them. And then we're going to fancy it up with some bearnaise sauce, which I'm going to talk about later. All right. So we're going to get our asparagus ready. This is my asparagus. I always do this to my asparagus when I get home from the grocery store, especially this time of year. I try to eat seasonally as much as I can, but I really love asparagus and it looks a little sad this time of year, right? It's not local. So what I do is I cut the ends off and I put it in water, and that's how I store it in the fridge. And the asparagus sucks up that water, so it stays crisper and it lasts longer. So I've got my asparagus here and I'm just going to prep it. And this is so simple, but you literally just bend the asparagus in half, and the part where it's tender snaps from the part where it's really woody. So this is a really nice, this is actually, if you guys have kids, this is a great kid activity. Or if you have partners who like to help you in the kitchen while you're cooking, but you don't necessarily like them helping you in the kitchen when you're cooking, this is a really good task for them. All right. So I'm just going to figure out how much asparagus we want tonight. I'm feeling very asparagus-y, so I'll probably give myself some extra. This is great too, because I love making this bearnaise sauce, and then I get asparagus, and I have asparagus and bearnaise sauce for the morning, so I can do like a little eggs Benedict that's a little fancy with some asparagus. All right, that looks great. Oh, and there's like a little couple broken guys in here. I'll just grab those. All right, perfect. There we go. And again, I'm going to flavor this really simply. So I've just got my olive oil and I've got some salt. Things don't always have to be super fancy, especially if you're doing a little thing that kind of makes it zhuzhy. So the other thing about roasting my asparagus, it's going to be done at a really high temperature. I like a crispy asparagus. I don't want it floppy, so it doesn't take long to cook. This is not going to go in the oven until my steak comes off from cooking. All right. This is going to go to the side and hang out. We're also not going to make our bearnaise sauce until the steak comes off, because then the steak can rest for us. All right, so we started smoking. I'm going to move you guys so that you're over here by where I'm cooking my steak. So we're going to go for a little ride. Let me move this stuff out of the way. All right. And the goal today is to not set off my fire detector or the fire alarm. That's like the big goal. All right, ready? I hope you don't have vertigo. There it is. You guys can even see the pan smoking. I'm gonna get my foil out because we're gonna need that. All right. So what we're gonna do is we're going to sear our steaks. Let me get my tongs. I'm pretty sure I said this before. All right, ready? Hold on, we're gonna go for it. So we got one, you hear the sizzle, 2. Hey, Google, set a timer for 3 minutes. So I'm just gonna give it a couple minutes to like really sear and get that sear on it. And then what we'll do is we'll turn it down, we'll flip it, it'll cook, and then we'll probably flip it one more time just to finish it off. All right, so this is ready. So that's gonna go. So I was talking about when you're cooking steak. This is actually true of all meat that you're cooking. You don't wanna take it directly out of the fridge and then start cooking it. That's how you get something done on the inside, raw on the outside. So for steak, I took it out about 45 minutes before I was gonna cook it. And the reason for that is it's winter, so it's kind of cold out. And so I just take it out a little early. It makes it easier for me. And that way I know that my steak is gonna cook evenly. So it's not like really, really cold in the center and gonna go raw. Super excited. Haven't had steak in forever. I'm glad you guys picked this one. All right, and while that's cooking, I'll talk about the base of the bearnaise sauce and what I have in here. So bearnaise sauce is just essentially a really fancy hollandaise. And it's kind of like grown-up hollandaise. Like it's had like a facelift and it's gone like above the age of 21 and now it has refined taste. And the only difference from hollandaise and bearnaise sauce is what goes in it. So for the acid for a hollandaise sauce, you normally add lemon juice. But for this, what it is it's white wine, it's vinegar. I use champagne because I'm fancy. It's some tarragon and some shallots, and literally smells so good. And all I did is I cooked that whole liquid, reduced it by half, and then I cooled it. This is gonna go in with our eggs and make our bearnaise sauce. And that's literally the only difference from hollandaise. It's like a mother French sauce. All right. We're just gonna hang out and cook steaks. I didn't oil my pan. I might add some if it's looking like it's a little dry, but I keep my cast irons pretty well seasoned. So if you do that, you don't necessarily have to put down any oil, especially something like steak. There's a lot of fat in that, so it's gonna render the fat and kind of cook in it. But we'll see. Oh, I actually might add some butter and baste it. See if I can open my fridge with this here. Ready? Woo, she does it. All right, we're gonna do that. We're gonna add some butter in a little bit and do a little basting. I've got my meat thermometer here. I love an instant read meat thermometer. Oh, there we go. Hey, Google, stop timer. Let's see if we got a sear. I don't know if you guys also noticed, I did not touch this. Hey, Google, stop. I did not touch my steak. So yeah, look at that. Look at that beautiful sear. Oh my gosh, I nailed it. All right, we're gonna turn that down. I'm going to tell you guys a story about me cooking steak because this is really exciting for me. Hey, Google, set a timer for 5 minutes. So back in my younger days, I actually auditioned for MasterChef, and you have to like prove that you can do different things the further you get along. And so I made it actually all the way to California. It was a really interesting and cool experience. But one of the things you had to do on video was cook a steak to medium rare. And I think I spent like $200 on steak. And for some reason, I couldn't get it. Like I kept going over and I have no idea why. So it was kind of like this insane battle of me and the steaks trying to get a perfect medium rare steak. And I'm very happy that I have now like gotten to the point where I can do that. Practice makes perfect, I guess. So we're gonna let this finish cooking. It should take a few minutes, but you can start like, I'm going to feel the steak, and that's one of the ways you can know the doneness. So your hand is like your guide for this. And when you put your fingers on different places, this part of your hand, the muscle kind of gets firmer and firmer. And that's the firmness you're looking for your meat. So you guys can do this with me if you want, but we're going to kind of do like a little okay, right? Our thumb and our pointer finger touch. And I'm going to feel, this is rare. So this, your steak will feel like this when you poke it. That's rare. If it's like this and you poke it a little bit firmer, that's medium rare. This is medium. And this is well done. So that's kind of like if you don't have a meat thermometer, you can learn to use your feel to figure it out. Or you can have a meat thermometer. I'm going to pool my meat at 125. So medium steaks are to 130, between 130 and 135. You always want to pool your steak before it actually hits that temperature, because it's going to rest for 10 minutes. And as it rests, the temperature is going to rise. All right. So nice. Yeah, this has got like a ways to go, which is fine. These are some like really nice, juicy fat steaks. I was pretty excited. And I'm pretty sure I said already, but just in case, I bought one ribeye. Ribeyes are like pretty big. So I bought one and then I cut it in half. And I cut one a little bit smaller for me. The larger one's going to be for my partner. And it just kind of works out perfectly. You get one cut of meat, but you get 2 portions from it. And I think a ribeye is really special and kind of like fancy. I always prefer it over a filet mignon. I think there's more fat in the ribeye, so it's a little juicier, which could be the reason why. All right. It smells so good. I've always wished that smell-o-vision was a thing, but it's just not. And that's all right. We're just going to keep cooking, doing our thing. This is like a really good point to drink some wine. And if you have wine, listen to music and chat, do things like that or other stuff. All right. My potatoes are ready. I'm going to start those actually now because it's 20 minutes until we're going to have dinner. So I just put in my air fryer. I'll show you what I did too. It's as simple as can be. So, oh, that potato doesn't look good. Oh, I think they're just oxidizing. So you can see, where are they? There they are. So this is just my air fryer basket. And all I did is I got some fingerling potatoes and cut like even size circles. And if they were really, really big, I would cut that circle in half. And then I put olive oil and salt, kind of the theme for everything, right? Olive oil and salt, because I already know I'm going to dip it in the bearnaise sauce and I don't want to mask that really nice flavor. All right, so let's check the temperature on our steaks and see where we're at. I'm pretty sure we're at like 100 degrees. That's my guess. Oh, I was wrong. Oh my gosh, guess what? I was so wrong. See, this is why. Oh, but see, this one's not as cooked. That is so interesting to me. This is why we get the meat thermometers, because they know. I'm going to give it a little bit longer. Yeah. It's funny because they do feel different. Maybe one side's a little bit thicker than the other. There we go. But this is again why it's like really great having a meat thermometer, right? It's a chance for you to kind of be able to like double check yourself. Save this for when I get my other hand dirty. I think I'm going to start basting it in some butter. You don't want to add butter whenever you're doing like butter based. You don't want to add it too soon, because if you do, what's going to happen is your butter is going to burn, and that's just devastating. Hey, Google, stop timer. Let's flip it and see how they look. Oh yeah. See, you're not cooking there. So beautiful. All right, let's add some butter and baste it. Okay, this part you're gonna want a hot pad because it's gonna be hot. So I'm just melting the butter. I've got the spoon that I use, and then it's really just like when you're basting something, you're essentially just bathing it in the fat, kind of like a turkey, right? Turkey basters. So I'm just taking it and I'm gonna put the butter over it. Beautiful. I'm going to check. Oh yeah, see, that's better. I actually think they might be done. Keep going a little bit more. Look at like the beautiful color we have on it. I'm obsessed. Amazing. So I like mine medium rare. My partner likes his medium. I'm going to take mine off and then hold that one for like, I don't know, 5 more minutes, not 5 more minutes, like 5 seconds. All right, so we're going to put it here. You could, if you wanted, if you weren't making a bearnaise sauce, this is a great time to make a pan sauce. So if you wanted to take this and make a pan sauce, you would just, you know, throw some shallots in there, cook them, maybe deglaze with a little red wine, and then boil it down until it's reduced. Throw some butter in there and call it a day. Or you could, if you like mushrooms, this looks amazing. Look at this piece of meat here. Like, isn't that beautiful? I'm like not in a good spot. There you go. Look at that. All right. So those steaks are beautiful. I'm going to put them over here and I'm going to cover them with foil. It's going to rest while we make our bearnaise sauce. All right. So just give that a little tent. That helps keep the heat in, and it's going to rest. So why do we rest meat? Great question. The reason we want to rest our meat is we just cooked it. So it like had a really intense moment. And we need to rest it because everything's kind of really tight right now and it needs to relax. If you were to cut your meat right now, because it's all tight, all the juices are just going to flow out. The same with like chicken. You have to let it rest. It reabsorbs all of its juices. And then that way you're not having dry meat. Like you could cook something perfectly. And if you cut it right away, you're not going to know. You're going to be like, oh my gosh, this is so tough. What did I do wrong? You have to let it rest. All right. So while that rests, we're going to put our asparagus in the oven and then we are going to make our bearnaise sauce. I'm going to move this right over here. So our asparagus is already prepped, ready, good to go in the oven. I just want to talk about my amazing timing right now. We have 15 minutes left in program, like right on time, which is great. It's my first program of the year. So I'm like nailing it, which is wonderful. All right, I'm going to move this over here. And we'll move this here, but I'm going to turn it down. All right, so now we're going to make our bearnaise sauce. So here I have a pot of water. This is the same pot that I boiled down that vinegar shallot reduction that I was telling you about. So right here, I boiled it in that pot. I have melted butter here. After I boiled it in the pot, I added my melted butter, melted my butter, put it in a different container. And now I'm using it as my double boiler. Again, let's lower those dishes, right? Got to think smarter. So I'm going to bring this water to a simmer. We're essentially creating a bain-marie or a double boiler. So because we're working with egg yolks, if we put it on direct heat, they're going to curdle and nobody wants a curdled sauce. So we do a gentle cooking by bringing this water up to a simmer. We're going to put that bowl on top. Always make sure you have a heat-proof bowl. And I don't use metal either, just because metal gets really, really hot. So I tend to use a glass bowl. And we're going to gently cook it with the steam from the water. So in this bowl, I have 3 egg yolks. And then this is that shallot, wine, tarragon yumminess that I made. I'm just going to put it in here, mix it together. All right. Yum. Perfect. And then this is the butter that I melted. Oh, I'll sanitize everything later. It's fine. All right, I'm going to add my butter. I'm just moving my butter to this because it makes it easier to pour. And I only have somehow like 2 of these. And like one of them's like a weird one that's actually for fat on broth. So I never use it. So again, I'm trying to figure out how can I just like reuse this thing all day. And it's all the same. And I'm like, okay, great. I'll put this tarragon thing in there and then I'll put the butter in and it's perfect. All right. We are almost boiling. I'm using my bigger burner because it's better for you guys to see. I'm gonna try to not cook it too fast. So what happens if we cook it too fast? If you cook it too fast, it's gonna start to curdle and you're gonna have a really clumpy sauce. I keep wanting to call it a hollandaise sauce. It's not a hollandaise, it's a bearnaise, but that's the mother sauce, right? Hollandaise gives birth to all these amazing things. All right, bring this guy right over here. I'm gonna just wipe up that. All right. So I'm gonna bring it to a boil and then I'll reduce it to like medium heat. And then it's gonna be like constant whisking for 5 minutes. And what we're looking for is it to kind of like pump up in volume. Kind of like with the other stuff we did. All right. So this, I'm gonna get this ready for the bearnaise sauce when it comes out. I'm gonna get my plates out for dinner. Okay. All right, so steam is starting to come, which is wonderful. That's exactly what we want. I'm gonna go ahead and put it on, and then we're just gonna start whisking. And this is my life for the next 5 minutes. Just doing this. That's kind of like, sometimes I think about cooking and the work that goes into it and the motions that can be repetitive as we're cooking. And I always kind of go back to this thought of there's almost this like really beautiful mindfulness to it. Like you get to stand here and whisk, and that's all that's being asked of you in this moment, is to whisk your egg yolks and to pay attention to that. And that feels really special. So, you know, I hope you guys kind of think about that when you're cooking and the joy of just doing. Not to mention, you're creating something incredibly fancy and beautiful. And how wonderful is that? I can smell my asparagus. My oven's up really high. I have it at 415. Keep going. Once we get to that really nice fluffiness, you guys can even see how it's starting to, there we go. You're starting to see like little bubbles and stuff. If you want, if you're a little worried that your bowl is getting too hot, you can just take it off the heat for a second. Keep stirring it. You'll be fine. And if you like make your hollandaise and when it's done, it's way too thick, you can always just add some water. It'll thicken or thin it out for you. Check my asparagus. Sizzle, sizzle. I don't like floppy asparagus. I want my asparagus to still have a crunch to it. So a little char in a hot oven is perfect. We're starting to thicken, which is amazing. Just gonna remove it from the heat because I got a lot of bubbles happening. I want to make sure I can see what's going on there. Back on it goes. I think my asparagus might be done. Let's turn on the oven. Oh, yes, it smells so good. I haven't had asparagus in a while either. This is a great class. Very excited. All right. But you guys see how it's starting to get bigger, right? It's fluffing up. We're getting more volume. And that's because like literally the egg is cooking, right? We're whisking it so that it doesn't curdle, but we're cooking that egg and it's gaining in volume. Just a gentle cook. And it's kind of like perfect because this takes about 10 minutes to do. And that's how long our steak needs to rest. So it's a perfect opportunity to be like, okay, my steak is resting. Everything else is doing its thing. I can make this sauce, or you can make the sauce ahead of time. Make it before you start cooking your steak. All right, I want to take my asparagus out, but I also don't want to like ruin my bearnaise and curdle it. So I'm just going to take it off the heat for a moment. That'll allow me to stop stirring. Check on my asparagus. Ah, beautiful. It's done. Look at that. So quick and easy. So that's gonna go here. Checking out my bearnaise. Looking good. We're gonna keep going. The thicker your asparagus, the longer it takes to cook, obviously. It's hard to find that really nice thick asparagus this time of year. So I have the thinner stuff, which takes really no time at all. Just keep going. We actually grow asparagus at the farm. We don't grow enough to sell. Like she only just grows it for fun. Our farmer, she's amazing. And so in the spring, when it's asparagus season, like the staff will just go into it's in like where the edible flowers go. So you just go into like the little flower field and find stalks of asparagus and pick them. And I won't forget, it was like an amazing moment this spring. I take my dog with me to work whenever I can. She can't go in the kitchen, but if I'm not in the kitchen cooking, she's coming to work with me. Ooh, look at this, guys. See how fluffy that is? It's like really thick. It looks great. I give it like maybe 30 more seconds. Anyways, the first asparagus had just come up and our farmer Adrian was in the field and I was just walking and she just goes, here, and hands me just this bunch of asparagus she just picked. And my dog and I went on a walk around the farm munching on fresh asparagus and it was absolutely wonderful. All right, we are gonna add our butter. So we're gonna do something that's called emulsifying. It's when you're taking two things that are not the same and putting them together and making them one, right? So I'm gonna slowly add my butter. If I put all my butter in, it's not gonna come together, it's gonna separate. So slowly pouring it in. And it's really the beginning that it's the most important to be careful about it. But then once you like get going, you can kind of just pour and go. You can also freeze this sauce, like if you make it and it's way too much, which I'm looking at it and I was like, I don't know if we're gonna get through this much sauce. You can freeze it. I just put it in the fridge the day before I wanna use it and then gently bring it back to life on the double boiler. All right, that is all of that yumminess. I'm gonna let it go a little bit longer, I want it a little bit thicker. And I'm gonna get my spoon out. That's how I can kind of like see. And you see that it's like coating the back of the spoon, which is amazing. Super acidic, which I love. We're gonna add some more salt. I'm just gonna keep letting this cook a little bit longer. Just wanna thicken it a little bit. Add a little more salt. Give it a taste. So good. There we go. And it's really the cooked egg yolks that's what's gonna thicken this. All right, that feels pretty good. Maybe, I don't know. We're gonna go one more 30 seconds and then we're gonna call it done. And again, just making sure you're moving it around. We don't want scrambled sauce. There we go. It's starting to thicken up. There we go. I maybe should have waited a little bit longer before adding my butter because it was a little thinner when I was done than I wanted it to be. But as you guys can see, I just kept stirring it and cooking it and it got thicker. Yeah, look at that. So nice. Oh. Sorry, wrong pipe. I'm okay. Sorry. Woo, wrong pipe. The worst when it happens when you're presenting, but we're okay. Whew. All right. Where am I going? There we go. All right. Sorry, guys. Whew. So I've got my sauce, my asparagus. Oh my God. Beautiful crunchy potatoes. My potatoes need a couple more minutes. So we're gonna let those finish up while we cut the steak. Sorry, guys. I'm okay. All right. So let's talk about cutting a steak. So when we're cutting a steak, you always want to go against the grain. If you go with the grain, it's like a really tough chew. So the way you can tell is you look at your steak and there are these natural lines. So here are my lines, right? So I can see them. Oh my God, it's so juicy. On this one, they go this way. And on this one, I turn them so they're going the same way. There we go. All right. So this is the way the lines are going. So I'm going to go the opposite direction. See if I did it right. All right. Oof, I need to sharpen my knives, guys. Yeah, that's a nice medium. All right. I hate this knife. I'm going to get them sharpened this weekend. Let's go here. Yeah, there we go. All right. So it's a perfect medium for my partner. It's a nice medium rare for me. I did it. It's like always so exciting. So it's one of those things where it's like you can't actually see it on the inside, right? But yeah, this is just absolutely beautiful. I'll show you guys. That one doesn't want to come, but if you just look, it's like this really nice pink. It's perfect. And now we're going to plate. So I kind of want to put the potatoes down first. So I'm just going to take some potatoes. All right. So I've got my potatoes here and I kind of just did like a line of potatoes. I'm going to try to plate fancy. We'll see how it goes. I really want to use this black plate for me. So that's what I'm going to do. So I've got my steak. I'm going to kind of rest a little bit up on the potatoes because I want to see that beautiful cook that I got on it. So do like a little fan around my potatoes. Right? Ooh, maybe I'll take my potatoes and I'll like fan my potatoes around my steak and then my asparagus can go there. That sounds nice. All right, and then the other one. That one's not as pretty. I never plate my partners as pretty as mine. It's not on purpose. It's just like this weird thing that happens. He's in the corner going, mm-hmm. It's not my fault. All right. Move this juicy guy out of the way. All right, and then I've got my asparagus. So I'm just gonna like give that here. I think it's like the Julia Childs quote about how she loves like a beautifully plated meal because you know someone's fingers were all over it. Accurate, Julia. All right. And then I have some fresh tarragon here that I just put to the side. I'm just gonna put that in with my bearnaise sauce. Look at that. I'm always so proud of myself when I do a sauce like this, you know, because I mean, you guys saw it really wasn't hard. It's kind of like getting that technique down. And again, taking the time to like really just enjoy the process of mixing it and paying attention to it and knowing like this is something that I'm making and I'm going to spend my time on it. All right. And then we're just gonna give a nice drizzle of bearnaise across our steaks. Go this way on this one. And that's it, my friends. That is all she wrote. You have, check this out, just a beautiful steak for steak night in. And we have our tiramisu. This is a very luscious meal. So, but that's it, you guys. So we just learned how to make tiramisu, steak, asparagus, and a bearnaise sauce.
Does anyone have any questions for Chef Kelcy about the meal or the process or anything before we end the event? Anyone?
I was pretty thorough, I feel like. Amazing. Well, thank you guys so much. It was an absolute pleasure.
You're welcome. Thank you for coming, and we enjoyed it very much. It was a great demonstration and everything looks lovely and delicious.
Thank you. I'm excited for dinner. All right. Thanks, guys.
All right, everyone have a great night. And it'll be posted on YouTube. Either you'll get the YouTube video tomorrow or sometime next week. You can check out our YouTube channel in Danvers Library. Thank you.
Amazing. Bye, guys. Have a
Bye-bye.
good one.
You too.